Hello guys, today's topic for Java tutorial for beginners is arrays in Java. I have divided this tutorial in two parts. One part covers the theory part of array and second part contains the practical part. That is, in second part we will see some programs related to arrays. So let's start with the first part of this tutorial. So in this part we will discuss what is an array, how array is different from a variables in Java. We will see the real world example of arrays to get the clear understanding of why we need to use arrays in our programs. Then we will discuss about the different types of arrays like single dimensional arrays and multi-dimensional arrays. So what is array? See, like other programming languages like C++, Java also has a concept of holding the multiple values under single name and of similar data type, that is called an array. Like said earlier, array is used to hold the data of similar data type under single name which has a fixed size. That means array has a fixed size. This is one of the feature of array. Means it creates a contiguous memory space for its elements. The values it stores are called elements of arrays. So in other words, it is often more useful to think of an array as a collection of variables of similar data type. Similar data type means the data types like integer, string, character, boolean, and so on. I hope you have got a basic idea about an array. Don't worry if you did not get most of it. Once we go through the complete tutorial, you will be very much comfortable using arrays in your programs. So the next question arises that why do we need arrays? As we know, we can store values in variables. Okay, we can have multiple variables in our program. So why do we need arrays? Because array is also holding or storing the values and variables also storing the values. So why do we need arrays? See, when we write a real world application, okay, when we write a real world application, then many a times we need to store and use hundreds of values of same type in a program. Since single variable hold single value, and for holding or storing these number of values of same type, we need these number of variables to store these values. And remember, all the variables will have different names, different memory location, and different values. But let's consider all variables are of same data type. So, and one more thing is that we may require to perform many data structure like operations on these values, such as sorting these values like from name, ID, then comparing these values, and many more operations. And since these are so these separate values stored in a separate variable. Hence, so in that case, arrays comes into picture, which is used to hold any number of values of similar type with single name. And by using the different type of loops, we can perform operations like sorting the values, searching the values from an array, and other data structure related operations very easily. This is why we can say that array is a part of data structure, and it is a collection of variables of same type. So it means, in simple words, we can say we are combining the variables into a single unit. So many variables are combined into a single unit, which will the unit will have a single name, and that unit is called an array. So guys, let's go through a real time example and relate it with variables and arrays simultaneously, so that we can get the clear idea of why do we need arrays in our programming. So what happens? A man builds a house with a single room only in an empty area and name it as A. Let's think it as a memory location in a memory with name A when we declare a variable. So it is decided which type of person will stay in this room. So decided that only men will stay in this room. Now let's relate this as a data type of variable like integer or character or string in our programming language. Means this variable will store like integer values, character values, or string type values in our variables. Now who will stay in this room? Like we have, like you can see the name John. Let's say John will stay in this room, so John will be the value of this room. Similarly, like variables stores values like 20s, 30s, or the names or the characters and so on. Now similarly, like this A, we can call a name of variable. Man, we can relate it as a data type of variable, and John, we can relate it as John is a value of the variable, uh, value of the variables. So we can say this is a complete variable, and if we want to access, then we can say man A is equal to John. That means A's data type is man and the value it holds is John. Similarly, in our programming, we can say A is a variable which has a data type integer which holds a value 20. Okay, now problem arise when if this man wants to build rooms for 100 persons. Okay, 100 persons. So the general solution would be that he will have to build 100 different rooms, one for each person, and every room will have a different name because he need to maintain the database of these rooms, like room name and who's staying in these rooms. Similarly, if you want to use 100 values of same type in Java, you need to define 100 variables with different names. Okay, and the case might be that all these 100 values will have the same data type. Okay, so this man will always have difficulty to maintain that number of rooms. Similarly, for a programmer, it will be difficult to maintain these number of variables in a program. Okay, so he finds a better solution. What solution it finds? to build a single building with 100 rooms. For each person inside the building, he named the building as A. Instead of creating 100 rooms, he built a single building with 100 rooms on different floors. Okay. Similarly, we define an array in Java. Okay. And let's say this man builds a building and name it as A, and it will decide that only men will stay in this building. So this building we can consider as an array in our programming language, and man will be the data type of this whole array. Okay. Similarly, we define an array in Java with a single name A. Okay. Now, similarly, we define an array in Java with a single name A, which will hold the values of hundreds of variables. Okay. Now let's see how array works in programming language. How array works. So you guys might have got an idea that how or why we need the arrays. Now let's see how array works. Now let's get back to Java again. Okay. So in this case, we have declared one array, and the name of array, we can see this name of array is A, and it holds the values like 1, then 30, 60, 10, 50, 10, 40, 20, and all these values are of integer type. Okay. So what happens when we create or declare an array? Like you can see here in this picture, array creates a contiguous memory space for all values and create a separate block for every value it stores. Now see, we have declared the array, and now the array has created a space in memory and stored these values in a free separate block. Okay, and stores the value of same data type. In this case, we are storing integer type values in array A. Now every variable in our example we have seen has a separate name, and similar to that, every block and an array is identified with an integer number, and that number is called as an index of an array. So we can see here in this picture 0. Okay, the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. These are the index of these blocks. These blocks are identified with the index number. Every block is assigned a number, an integer number, and that number is called as an index of that particular block. Okay, so every value in array is fetched or updated with index number. One of the feature of array is that it starts with index number 0. We can see in this picture, it starts with 0, means first block of array would have index number 0, which actually holds the first element of array, and values of arrays are accessed through these index numbers. Okay, we will see what the size is later. Now, like I said, values of arrays are accessed through these index numbers, such as, now see, A of 1 is equal to 30, means, okay, and a of 2 is equal to 60, then a of 3 is 10, then a of 4 is 50, similarly a of 5 is 10. Okay, in this picture we can say this 1 is the index number of the value 30. Okay, then often, so here we can see the size of the array is 8, since array started with index 0, which holds the value 1, and the last value it holds is 7, which is at the index 7. Okay, that is why the size of the array is 8, means size of the array is the number of indexes it has. So what is the size of array? The number of indexes it has, and we always require the size to get, the size of array to loop through the values of array to fetch the data of it using various types of loops. So what are the rules? There must be some rules for arrays. What are those rules? The rules are: array's index start with 0. Okay, in our example we can see that array starts with index 0, which holds the value 1, and continues till index 7, which hold the value 20. Array has size. Now the next rule is array has a size. Like said earlier, the size of the array is identify the number of indexes it has. So in this case the size would be 8, because it holds the 8 values. Okay, now the next rule is array are of fixed size, means array is a fixed in size. So we can say array is a fixed size data structure, means we cannot add any more elements in an array once we define the size of the array and assign the values to it. If we modify an array, it actually creates the copy of this array and add new values to it and deletes the older copy of it. Okay, so types of array. So we have seen so many concepts about the arrays. What are the arrays? Why do we need arrays? And then how array stores the values. Now let's see type of arrays. So we can see array has a size, like single dimensional array and two-dimensional arrays and the multi-dimensional arrays. In single dimensional array holds a single value for every element. Every element will have a single value. In two-dimensional array we can say two-dimensional array as an array of array, and multi-dimensional array of array of array. Okay, now we have already seen a single dimensional array, like it holds a single values. Here we can see that integer, now bracket and a is equal to, in curly braces we define 1, 2, 3. This is 1, 2, 3 on the single values. It is a single dimensional values. Okay, now we can see, let's see the two-dimensional array. Okay, how we define or declare two-dimensional array? So whatever examples we have seen till now is a single dimensional array. There is another type of array called two-dimensional array. Okay, so two-dimensional arrays work similar to a table in Excel sheet, which has rows and columns. Okay, rows and columns. Now How we declare the array? So in this case, we can see we first use the integer type array. So this is the data type of array. So these two brackets, it says that this first bracket would be the rows, and this defines the columns, like similar to Excel sheet which has rows and then columns. And this array var name, it suggests the variable name of this array. Okay, so because element of two-dimensional array is also a single dimensional array, like in here we can see this a curly brace, and inside that we can see 1 2 comma next curly brace, and inside that next curly brace is 3 4, then again 5 6 7 8 similarly. Okay, so a two-dimensional array is stored in computer's memory, one row following other. The address of first byte of memory is considered as the memory location of the entire 2D array or two-dimensional array. Okay, here the values of single array represents a row like this. Okay, the first element of this two-dimensional array itself is an array. So this first element or the element of the two-dimensional array is called, we considered it as a row. Okay, think like this. In this case, 1 or 2 is a row, and 1 and 2 represents column number 0 and column number 1. Similarly, we can say the other array inside this array, we can consider it as a row number 1, and similarly column number 0, column number 1, because already we have seen in single dimensional array that it starts with 0. So in this case also, these columns of inside an array will start with 0. So we can say row 0 has 0 column, 1 column. Then in row 1 we have 0 column, 1 column. Similarly, we have row number 2 which has 0 column and column number 1, and similarly we have row number 3 which also has column number 0 or column number 1. Okay, so we can see, okay, so we can convert this into a table. Let's represent this array in a tabular form. What happens when we process this two-dimensional array? So this is the table. Okay, we can see in table how the data from an array will look like when processed and stored in a table, where A represents array. Okay, so how can we access the elements of two-dimensional array is using two for loops. Outer loop, so in this case the outer loop represents the rows, number of rows, and the inner loop represents the columns. Okay, so in this way we have seen. Okay, so in this table we can say this block, it says the row 0 and column 0 which has the value 1. Then we have the row number 0, this one, the row number 0, and column number 1 which represents the value 2. Then again in row number 1, so we have processed the row number 0. Now let's move. We have processed this row 0 with the help of this outer loop. Okay, then I'm just giving out the idea how we process the two-dimensional array. But in second part of this tutorial, we will see actually writing the programs using these loops, outer loop and inner loop, how we can process the two-dimensional array. It will be a fun. Okay, but now see this row number 1. Now this block represents the row number 1, and again the column number 0, which represents this value 3. Then in row number 1, and we have column number 1 which represents the value 4. So on, we have created one table. After processing this two-dimensional array, we get these values. I hope you have got at least something from this theoretical session. So this way we have seen the theoretically how arrays works. In next tutorial, we will see how the arrays can be, we'll see how the arrays can be declared, how arrays can be processed using and without using the loops, like fetching a particular value using particular index of it. And we will see some of the programs using different types of arrays with different data types like string, character and objects. I hope you have understand the concept of arrays, why we use arrays in Java and what is array in Java. So thanks for watching it. Thank you.